So for those of you just joining us, the first 5 pieces of the anatomy of a seller transaction, not important at all. Review them on your own, because I forgot to press record. So review them on your own, or speak to your colleagues, and they will give you all of the fascinating information that we just talked about. Starting with number 6, however, we're talking about diving in and presenting that offer to the seller, right? So if it's all right with you, I'm going to read through this. I want you to just highlight or underline some of the pieces of this that you think make really good sense, that some ahas that you might get, some notes that you want to make sure that you mentally take about how we're delivering this information. Ready? Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So the offer that we've received is from Tom and Sally Smith. They are from Pennsylvania. They have 2 kids and another one on the way. They will both be working down in White Plains once they make their move, and they are opening negotiations on your home with an offer of $550,000. They will look to finance 80% of that amount with a mortgage, and we have a letter of pre-qualification from Westport Mortgage for that amount. Their ability to obtain this mortgage will be a contingency in the contract. The other 20% will be in cash, 10% total at the contract signing, and the other 10% brought to the closing table. Now, they've asked for the following extra items to be included in the sale. They'd like the pool equipment, the lower level freezer, and that great place that you have out in the backyard. Their contract will be contingent upon satisfactory inspections of the house and septic systems, which will also include testing the well water and testing for radon in both the air and the water. They are asking for 7 days to get all those inspections completed. They'd like to have contracts signed and back to you within 14 days, and they've requested a June 30th closing date. So let's discuss. I'd like to get your thoughts. Do you have any questions about any of the terms that we just reviewed? So talk to me. What do you notice about that version of presenting an offer? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want to make sure that you remember?
It's all very positive. You're just giving them the data. It's for them to analyze and come up with their own conclusions.
Absolutely. So I love the fact that David said it's all upbeat. He didn't say upbeat, but I can't remember the word he used. It's all upbeat and positive, and it's objective, right? It's just the facts, Jack. Here's the deal. And yet it's all the facts. A lot of agents present offers this way. Yeah, so Silva, I have an offer for you. It's for $550 with a closing date of June the 30th. All the regular inspections. What do you think?
Fine.
Really? Right? There's so much more detail inside of an offer that has to be communicated, right? So make sure that you're communicating it all. What else? What else did you notice?
I like that the dollar amount was the way that's expressed as opening negotiations versus offering this.
Yeah, right. Because and that's one of the important ones to underline. When you start with their opening negotiations with X, it removes some of that angst that sellers sometimes have when they hear the offer is this number. Well, when the offer is this number, they start to hear that as the final number. Right? And so when you present it utilizing the phrase, they're opening negotiations at X, even if you counter back and they don't move, they were still opening negotiations at X, and then they just chose not to move from that number. What else?
Rick, I really
Yes.
like the way that you this example personalizes the buyers and makes them actual people that, you start thinking when you get an offer and it's not what you want, it's harder to hammer somebody when you know who they are, kind of a little bit of personal thing about them and the baby and another on the way. And I really think that softens everything to have a personal connection, for the seller to have somewhat of a personal understanding of who they are.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And I agree. That's all done very purposefully, right? Humanize the seller. Because here's what I've learned. If you don't, the buyer, excuse me, if you don't humanize the buyer to the seller oftentimes horribilizes the buyer on their own. So humanize to avoid horribilization. Write that word down.
Hey, Rick, if that information doesn't come over by way of a letter from the buyer or from their agents, verbally, is there another way? Should you seek that out, or should you try and find that?
I absolutely would. If you get information that's light on who these people are, I may absolutely ask the buyer's agent, hey, could do me a favor, or do you and the buyers a favor? Could you give me some personal information around them? Like, who are they? Like, what do they do? What's their family look like? Just to give the sellers a little bit of an idea about who they are, because I think with these sellers that might really help. Now, here's what's fun. With some buyer's agents, you'll get, oh yeah, absolutely. So they're this, to this, to this, to this. And with some buyer's agents, you'll get, I'm not telling you anything. I'm not telling you that. Okay, whatever. I was asking ultimately on their behalf, because I wanted to present them in the best light possible to the sellers. If you're unwilling to share, that's okay too, right? Don't pick fights. Just I say that only because I don't want you to think that when you ask that question, everyone on the planet will simply spring to life and give you all tons of information. Sometimes people shut you down on that. Okay, whatever. Move forward. No, move forward without it, right? What else? Anything else? A couple of things that I want to make sure that you hear.
So I like the fact that giving all the details, you're letting them know, implying, or maybe you've already said, that it isn't just about the price. There might be something we have to talk about that has to do with the closing date, or with, how the money is going to pay out, the timing. So, it's like not just about that number. There could be something else that's actually the deal breaker or the stumbling block.
Yeah, great point, Donna. And the idea of this detailed, this comprehensive of a discussion is really meant to highlight that offers are multifaceted, right? And we have to make sure that all of these things work for the seller and for the buyer. I want you to remember something. One of the ways you have a really good transaction, a solid deal, is when both parties feel as though they've given something to make it work. When one party feels like they got off scot-free and the other party feels like they gave a limb, you don't oftentimes have as solid a transaction as you want, because at some point somebody wakes up and is resentful. And that's when people start changing their minds. Right? It's why the environment today with multiple offers, you need to be really, really cautious around how everyone is treated. So I will do this in my session on navigating multiple offers, but let me ask this question to underscore the point I was looking to make. What is the number one thing a listing agent is charged with doing in a multiple offer situation? And I'll give you a small hint. It's probably not the thing you're thinking of. There is one thing that a listing agent, there's a number of things a listing agent has to do, but it's the most important thing in a multiple offer scenario. Anybody want to take a guess? Go ahead, Lisa.
To give the seller the most information possible so they can make an informed decision on who they want to buy the house, and not necessarily price, but everything that goes with it.
I love that. I love that, and I will demote it to number 2. You know what? I won't demote anything. What I will do is solidly place it right in that number 2 spot, because that is the number two answer. But there is a number 1 that goes ahead of it.
Be fair to all parties involved.
That's exactly it, Alicia. And I'm gonna restate what you just said, if that's okay, to make sure that everyone involved feels as though they have been treated fairly, right? Because sometimes you are being fair, and yet you have to do an extra special something to make sure everybody feels as though they're being treated fairly. Why is that the most important thing? In a multiple offer scenario?
Well, you never know going forward what, where your road is going, what your path is. You never know who you're going to be dealing with in business. You have to have a very high level of integrity and a very high level of business ethics. So, and you never know who's going to talk to who and say, I would never hire them because they, dissed me on this deal we were doing, whatever. It just has to be integrity and ethical.
So yeah, that is definitely the longer term answer to that question. There is a shorter term answer as well. What's the shorter term answer?
It usually makes the deal close more smoothly because you don't have other issues come up where people have feelings and they fight or repercussions and things like that.
So yeah, it makes the transaction you move forward with less contentious, and yet there's even a shorter term answer before a choice is made with an offer.
You don't know who's going to win the offer.
Yeah, that's right. And whether or not anyone's even going to stick around, right? I have seen listings that obtained 5 or 6 different offers all very quickly. And because of the way the seller and or the listing agent chose to proceed by not creating an environment where people felt like they were being fairly treated, every single one of those offers, almost all at the same time, said, you know what, screw this, I'll buy another house. You can go from 5 or 6 to 0 real quick if you don't pedal down the path of making sure that people feel like they're being treated fairly. All right, number 7, be certain that you examine every line of the offer. And I say that because things can come in on different forms. Not only could they come in on 3 of the forms that you guys have seen and are aware of, excuse me, they could come in on a proprietary form, right? There might be a Ravis version of a purchase agreement that says something even different. There might be a Sotheby's version of an offer to purchase that has different language in it, right? And so you need to just make sure that you read through what comes in to be able to point out to the seller any kind of like contract language or anything that you're not playing attorney. However, you are pointing out any differences to the forms that you're used to and making sure they understand what they're potentially signing. Number 8, work with the seller so that they fully understand the offer that's being presented, answer any questions, and counsel them on next steps. Remember, ARM exists on the buy side and the sell side. You have to remind them they have ARM. ARM stands for accept, reject, modify. Now, I will tell you, as a listing agent, it is my opinion that 99.5% of the time, the reject portion, when they receive an offer, shouldn't be on the table. Like there should always be a counter. There should always be a conversation. Now, sometimes, this may surprise some of you what I'm about to say, depending on market conditions, sometimes that counter might be for more than asking. And yet at least there's a response, right? No response is worse. Can someone do that? Can someone ask $599, get an offer for $589, and counter at $610? Sure they can. It's their house. They can do whatever they want. Now, if there's not a high level of interest and or multiple offers, they may be shooting themselves in the foot. I bring this up, guys, not necessarily because it's part of our anatomy tonight, but because in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten minimally 2 calls a week with those scenarios, asking me questions about can they do that? Because they're solo offers, not multiple offers, solo offers where the counter is higher than the asking price.
Oh,
I had someone come in, call me just the other day and say, all right, so explain to me how this works. We made a full price offer and the counter came back $10,000 higher than asking. Yep, it's called market conditions, right? The seller felt as though in that position that if they didn't say yes to this particular buyer right away, that the buyer may be willing to pay them more. And if they put some distance in between receiving that offer and accepting that offer by throwing back a higher counter, that they might get another offer and then start to be able to churn and maybe push it towards a bidding war. Again, I'm not saying it's a great or effective strategy. I'm just throwing out to you, in this type of environment, you may well find that happens. You just have to be ready to help the buyers understand that market conditions drive those kinds of things. Because the agent who called me was all upset, and I asked a question and I said, well, have you had a conversation with the buyers yet? Or did you call me first? And she said, oh, no, I had a long conversation with the buyers. I said, great, what did you tell them? And what she told them was, can you believe what they're doing? Can you believe the nerve of these people? I can't tell whether it's the listing agent or the sellers or both. They're crooks, they're mean, they're terrible, they're horrible. Okay, that's a real big duh, right? Like, why would you poison the conversation? My main question was, if you had a question about whether this was okay or not, why didn't you call me first and then talk and then bitch and moan to the buyer? Wouldn't that have made better sense? Right? Those of you who are out in the marketplace, is this stuff happening? Silva, Debbie, Ryan, right? Carla, are these things happening?
Everything is happening right now. You name it, 32 years, I'm seeing things I've never seen before.
Yeah. So the good news is it's all possible. It's all possible. So be ready for it, right? All right, let's keep moving. Number 8. So number 8, we were talking about no counter being not a good business decision, right, for the seller. So be ready to counsel that. Sometimes you have sellers who say, oh, goodness, this is my favorite thing a seller says. I am so insulted by that offer. Come on. You're insulted by an offer? You're insulted because somebody liked your house well enough to actually sit down and write up something and write a check and offer to purchase it from you? Come on, let's get real, right? It's business, folks. It's business. Let's stay focused on the business side of the business. My script for that was always, so, you know, I can appreciate how you feel. Like, I understand. I would challenge you, however, to choose to be more insulted by the 32 people who walked through your house and didn't sit down and write an offer than the one who did. Can you see how we should maybe be excited about that one? Again, let's not worry about where the offer starts, because it's not about where it starts, it's where it ends up. And the good news is you have me. You have me to go back and help people understand that that particular number is not going to work for you. Make sense? So we counter anyway. One of the strategies I like to use, if it was Ryan's house and he said, nope, no counter, and we counsel him forward to say, all right, you know what, Ryan, do me a favor. I want to just play kind of like a what if scenario. So your house is on for $595. The offer came in at $530. And so you're choosing no counter. What if the offer came in at 565. What do you think you would do, Ryan?
Be less agitated and
Okay, well,
probably
that's a
entertain
good
it.
start, right? And so if you're entertaining it because you're less agitated, what do you think you might counter with at a 565 initial offer?
Well, if I was looking for, I think 595 was the list and 565, maybe I'd try and get them to 580.
So
See if-
580. Got it. Got it. So just to kind of recap, what I'm hearing you say is at your current list price, had an offer come in at 565, you would counter at 580.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. And so I'm curious, is there any reason not to make the same move with the offer that is on the table, the same counter with the offer that is on the table, and then allow me and my counterpart to help raise the offer to where it's acceptable to you?
I guess not. Just seems like a big jump on their end. Do you think they'd make that?
I'll tell you what I've learned in my experience is we don't quite know until we go back and help guide them there, right? Have I seen people make jumps like that? Absolutely. So is that the path you think you want to go down?
Yeah, sounds fair enough.
Great, let's do it. Right, and so now we went from, I'm so insulted because the offer is so low to, okay, so pretend the offer isn't low. Right? That's all we're doing is, okay, pretend it wasn't. So if it wasn't, what would your response be? And then let's just use that response for the low one. Debbie.
I have to say, I love that strategy because the game here is keep the dialogue going. And I'll say that to either party. I want to keep the conversation going to see where we can possibly end up because you just never know.
Yeah, so true, right? So true. Think about going out into the backyard with your child and with two baseball gloves and a baseball. And the idea is you're going to have a catch. And you throw the ball to your child catches it and leaves. Well, we're not having a catch anymore, right? They've terminated the conversation. So you've got to keep throwing the ball back and forth in order to move people forward. Go ahead, Donna.
So I just wanted to share that I do use this script often. I wish to God I had had it in my earlier years in the business. It is magical. I mean, it really, really works to help keep them engaged and staying and understanding that, that don't be insulted. Just what you said, everything you said. I just want to say this is a magical script.
Yeah, because what's so fabulous about it is that it simply helps people get out of their own way, right? Because the answer of no is not a business answer; it's an emotional answer, right? So let me give you this script because from an expectation setting perspective on the list side, I think it's an important one as well. When you're being hired, one of the expectations you need to set is, so Donna, one of the things that I just want to kind of clear through with you is that I believe that one of the main reasons you're hiring me is to keep you focused on the business side of this whole transaction. Trust me, I have worked with enough sellers to know that sometimes the scenario that we get to deal with pushes us into emotion. And I want to make sure it's okay with you that if I start to see you veering into that kind of subjective emotional state, that it's all right with me that I kind of call that out and pull you back so that you're on track to make objective business decisions. Would that be okay if I start to see you going down that path? Right? And Donna says, nobody says, no, please let me careen down the path of hysteria. Nobody says that. But see, again, if you haven't had that expectation setting conversation up front, when someone is tumbling down that emotional roller coaster, it feels weird or it feels weird to you to reach in and say, okay, let's pull you back to business. I like to set the expectation because then I can just use the same words. Hey, oh goodness, Donna, do you remember a couple of weeks ago when you first hired me and I asked you the question about if we ever started to head into an emotional state, would it be okay if I kind of called that out and pulled you back into a more objective business state? Well, I this is one of those moments, right? Because if you haven't set that up, it feels weird to do that, right? Because Donna's getting more and more upset and whatnot, and you start to think, my goodness, I'm going to try and pull her away from that. She's going to be now even more upset and angry with me. So really important to set that expectation.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, of course.
So I do this with my buyers and with my sellers. I say at the beginning, at one of the first meetings, I say, so you need to know that while we go through this process, there are going to be times when people behave badly. And then I say, even you are going to behave badly at some point as we go along. And we all laugh, but it's true. There are times when you've got to peel your clients off the ceiling. And this, like you said, it sets up the fact that, yeah, I'm going to step into that role for you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that version. People are going to behave badly, even you, right? That's a great version of that. Love it, love it, love it, love it. You guys should be writing this stuff down. There's some gold in them thar hills. All right, number 9. You may want to call the name on the mortgage pre-qual or pre-approval letter and just ask some questions about the buyer, right? You're the listing agent, so if something comes to you from somebody maybe you don't know, I think it makes sense to make a phone call, right? Just to make sure that they really are qualified, make sure that that there isn't anything you need to know. So let me ask you this, can the mortgage person for the buyer answer those questions that you may be asking about their loan or their issues or their stuff? So here's the answer. It doesn't matter. You're still going to call and ask. Some of them will give you way more information than they should. Some of them will say, oh, you know what? I appreciate that, but I need to call them and ask if I can give you any information. However, your job as the listing agent is to make sure that the document that came with the offer actually means something. I'll tell you 2 quick stories. I had one time very, very early in my career, I had a handwritten pre-approval letter. No letterhead, no, I don't even think there was a phone number. And I didn't think enough of it at the time because I was really, really green to ask some questions. Well, that became a problem because that person just had somebody write a letter for them. Not good. The other one I'll tell you about, Debbie will probably remember this one. We had listed a house on Circle Drive in Ridgefield, and the pre-approval letter came in from the Royal Bank of Scotland. And frankly, neither one of us made that phone call to verify that the Royal Bank of Scotland was, here in the United States. And what we uncovered way too late in the transaction to rescue a delay was that the Royal Bank of Scotland was really in, you guessed it, Scotland. And so the money had to come from Scotland. And the problem with that is now you have international money and it has to be here for a certain amount of time to season before anybody will clear it through to be able to be utilized in a transaction or some version of that. But I take that on us. We could have and should have verified those funds because it was a bank and people that we didn't know. My rule of thumb, I don't know the person on the bottom of the letter, I'm going to call and ask some questions around that just to get better information so the sellers are prepared to make better decisions.
The context of that also is those were the days when truly anything, almost anything goes. Anything. It was the crazy times.
Yeah, it's the Wild West.
Then we hit a brick wall. There are more brick walls now.
Yeah, that is true, which is better, right? Which is better. And here's what's unfortunate. I remember that transaction, because I use it to give an example a lot. But the second reason I remember it is because our clients were moving from here to Nevada. And I don't know if you've ever purchased property in Nevada. In Nevada, what happens is you sign a contract and there's an automatic per diem for delay of closing. We don't have that here, right? Unless you have a time is of the essence clause in your contract, there is no penalty for delays of closing. In Nevada, there is. And the delay that this caused cost them a substantial amount of money because they had to pay per diems for like 2 weeks or something like that, right? All righty. Number 10, once the offer is negotiated and accepted by both parties, you're going to ask the agent to rewrite the offer so you have a nice clean version and everyone's going to sign it. Number 11, at the same time you're asking the buyer to rewrite everything, you're asking the buyer who the buyer's attorney is going to be, who they're using for the home inspection, and when those inspections will be, who they're using for the septic inspection, if that's part of the deal, and who and when those are going to be. And oh, by the way, I think an interesting question to ask as well is, will the buyer make application for the loan with the people who they submitted the pre-approval with? And here's why I think it's important to ask that. Sometimes people make different decisions and they don't tell anybody. And sometimes that can matter. Minimally, nobody likes surprises at the end. Minimally, if you don't know it and then the seller finds out through their attorney that there's a delay because they switched the bank and you don't know it, it makes you look foolish, right? It makes you look like you're not quite on top of things. So I kind of like this question up front because it plants a seed for the buyer's agent that if there's some kind of a change that as the listing agent, I want to know, right?
I've had a couple of times recently when somebody went from a conventional loan to FHA or CHFA and didn't tell us.
Yeah.
Didn't tell us. I found out when the appraiser came.
Yeah.
So that was just a light bulb to ask questions and track that stuff and look, serious.
Yeah, so don't leave that one out because again, what's happening nowadays is everything. So be prepared for anything. Number 12, once you have the information, you're going to prepare a contract information sheet and send it to everybody so everyone's on the same page. Number 13, give a copy of all the paperwork, including the contract information sheet. Not only are you sending that to your client's attorney, but you're also sending that to your MCA. And you're no longer sending it to your MCA, you're now uploading it into Command, right? So that your documentation is all in Command and you have everything you need to push through and fill out a commissions tab. That all needs to happen within 3 days of the fully executed offer document. So as soon as you have a deal, all that paperwork goes to all those people. Please note it doesn't say make sure the inspections go okay first. It says get all your documentation with an accepted offer to the attorneys, to the market center, in Command, to your MCA within 3 days. Too many people think that what they're supposed to do is wait to make sure the transaction goes forward. That is not what you're supposed to do. Get all the documentation to all the people and then just plan on it going forward. I think that's a mindset thing, right? Don't take the mindset that, oh, it might die with inspections. Why would you do that? Just make sure it doesn't and charge on forward, right? Once the inspection dates are set, be certain. Now, number 14 may sound like a really duh number. I will tell you it's there for a reason. Once the inspection dates are set, be certain to inform the seller. I one time at about 10 after 9 got a phone call from a client. Hello, yeah, Rick, hi, it's Jane. Hi, Jane, how are you? She said, well, I'm sort of okay. I'm in my nightgown, feeding my children breakfast, and there's a whole posse of people at my front door telling me that they're here to wander through my house for the next 3 hours. And I was just wondering what you might be able to share about that. I forgot to tell her when the inspection was. right? Those are some of the times where you know that you're getting busy enough that you need some help, right? When things like that start to fall through the cracks and you get phone calls like that, now you need an assistant. You need something, or a system, a better system. You need something to help you stop those kinds of things, right? So it's on here because I want to make sure that your checklist includes all the stupid stuff that I did and had to learn from. And that was a mistake I made only one time. She was cordial about it. She said, okay, well, if you could please buy me 20 minutes so I can actually get dressed, dress my children and get them in the car and get them out of the house. So we did. They went and like did the outside stuff first and whatnot and bought her some time. But just know that it's there because at some point you may forget. So also, if there's anything special that the seller should do, right, to prepare for the inspection, make sure that they've done that, like airing out the house prior to a radon test. Can they do that? Can they air out the house before a radon test? Yeah, of course they can, right? As long as they follow protocol. Protocol says that they have to do it. The house has to be kind of boarded up, not boarded up, not boarded up. The house has to be closed up for, I can't remember, is it 24? I think it's 24 solid hours before a radon test, or is it 48? 72?
12. It's
12.
12. So it's the night before.
There we
You
go.
open it up, close it up the night before, and you're good.
There you go, right? And yet having them air things out and getting a fresh start with only 12 hours of accumulation for radon is not a bad idea, right? So make sure you're walking through those kinds of things with them. Of course, you'll report the property today as show in the MLS within 48 hours. What happens if you have a seller who says, I don't want you to report that as show in the MLS because I want to make sure that the inspections go right. I don't want to have the whole back on market stigma. What do you do with something like that? Please, not all at once.
You explain the rules. You just
Yeah.
say, I have regulations that I must abide by. And when we signed the paperwork, you said you would abide by them too.
That's a good script, right? The answer is, I get it. And yet, unfortunately, we're not able to do that. There are rules and regulations that the MLS has that say 48 hours. So if you'd like me to wait 47 hours and 59 minutes from the time that you have signed that document, I can certainly do that. But at 47, 59, 59, I got to report it, right? And I love that little tag, that little add-on that Debbie put onto that, which is, and oh, by the way, when we signed the contract, you also agreed to abide by those same rules, right? Remember, sometimes you just have to say no. Sometimes you have to explain how it works. Number 16, stop by the inspection to check in and see if there's any information that you can provide. So as the listing agent, you don't attend the inspection. As the listing agent, you might drop by, right? Sometimes your sellers make requests. Well, aren't you going to be there? And again, sometimes you just have to explain how it works. No, not physically. I will certainly drop by if at all possible, and I'm always available via cell phone for any questions that the buyer's agent might have. Understand, this is the time that the buyers get to bring their professionals in to examine the house that they're purchasing. It's their time in the house. So no, I'm not there, you're not there. We're available if needed. 17, it's at this point that you need to kind of start keeping all the parties in action, right? Because now the contracts are being written and the inspections are getting close to being done, and you're kind of moving through, seeing if there's anything that the buyers are going to request. So you start the whole plate spinning thing again. Remember we talked about this in the buyer anatomy of a buyer transaction. You start spinning the plate of, okay, I have to be contacting my client every couple of days. I need to make sure that I'm contacting the seller's attorney every couple of days. I need to be in touch with the buyer's agent every couple of days to make sure things are moving forward, right? All these different parties to make sure that everyone's moving the way you need them to be moving. I'll tell a quick story. I had an agent a couple of years ago come to me and say, you know, I am so frustrated. I am frustrated because I have these transactions and they're all my listings, and for one reason or another, I can't seem to get anything closed. And I said, well, tell me about that. I'm not sure I know what you mean. She said, well, take this one, for example, today. I said, okay, tell me the story. She said, well, it's my listing, and there are tenants in the property. And the deal that was created when this property sold is that the landlord had to give 30 days notice to the tenants to vacate so that the closing could happen and the new buyers could arrive and move in, right? And that was all kind of worked out. I said, okay, so what's the issue? So, well, the tenants never got the notice. And I said, well, you're kidding. How come? Well, and she listed every single person on the planet. I think she named me. I think she named each of you, your siblings, your parents, your children. She named everybody on the planet. I think Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny were thrown in there for good measure. And can you believe that all these people didn't do what they were supposed to do to make sure that notice got given? And I said, well, can I ask just one question? I said, remind me again, who was the listing agent? And she said, well, me. And I said, well, what did you do? She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, what were you aware that this had to happen? And she said, yes, it was part of the deal. And I said, okay, well, what did you do to ensure that occurred? Well, nothing. It's the landlord's fault, and it's the landlord's attorney's fault, and the tenants should have waved their arms, and somebody should this, that, and the other thing. And I said, I'm sorry, with all due respect. Again, that's living in the world of if they were different, I'd have a closing. You can't live that way. You have to just be better. And so what that means is, in a scenario like that, I would have it in my phone or have it in my notes or have some kind of reminder set for like 40 days out, and I'm going to start making phone calls. Hey, Silva, did you tell your tenants they have to move? And then I'm calling Silva's attorney. Hey, could you do me a favor and make sure that Silva gives the notice that she needs to give? I don't know if it has to be in writing or a verbal thing is okay, but if you and she could work together to make sure this happens, we're running out of time. Now we only have 9 days to get this done. Now we only have 7 days to get this done. And at some point, people argue with me saying, well, you know, you make it sound like when you're the agent involved, that you have to do everybody else's job. And my response to that is, you know what? That's only important and accurate if you expect to get to a closing table. If the closing is not important to you and you providing that level of service to the client is not important to the client, well, then I guess you don't have to worry about that. But you see what happens when you don't, right? You're the one who has to remind everybody of everything. That's how transactions get to a closing table. That's the difference between a talented listing agent and somebody who's less skilled, right? And I'll tell you why you want to be the one who makes sure that everyone's doing what they need to do to get to the closing table. Because if you will be that from day one, or if you're not that now, if you'll start being that, over the course of time, what happens in the marketplace is that agents who represent buyers start saying things like this. Well, you know, Jennifer Harkins is the listing agent on that property. Here's the good news. She knows how to get things to close. She knows how to move us all to the closing table. And this is me, the buyer's agent, saying that to my buyers to reassure them that she knows how to get it done. Because there are listing agents who I would say that about still today. And there are listing agents who you couldn't pay me enough to say that about. Right? And a lot of it has to do with understanding that the responsibility becomes all encompassing. You are the plate spinner. And it's not about being annoying. It's not about calling and pestering people. It's about calling. I get to call Silva and say, hey, Silva, it's Rick Scott. I just wanted to check in and see how things were going. Is there anything I can do to help you or your clients move this forward? And then I call the attorney. Hey, just wanted to call and check in. Is there anything I can do to help move this forward? I'm always offering help. When you're calling and offering assistance, nobody thinks you're being a pest. And then you can kind of throw in a reminder here or a reminder there. Make sense to everybody? I'm going to tell you, it is the key to the kingdom. What I just said, as a listing agent especially, that's the key to the kingdom. Number 18, once inspections are done, you can expect to hear from the buyer's agent within about 48 hours regarding any items that might need to be addressed. Set the expectation with the buyer's agent about when you will hear from them, and if they don't call, you call them. Right? Remember on the other side when you're the buyer's agent, and I'm delivering the offer to Donna, and I'm going to say, so Donna, when can I expect to hear from you? And she's going to give me that information. I'm going to follow up. Well, this is the same thing as a listing agent. So when the buyer's agent comes back, they finish the inspections, I want to know from the buyer's agent, when can we expect to hear from you? Do you have all the reports? And if they say give us 48 hours, great. 48 hours from now, if I haven't heard anything, there are some people who think the smart path there when you haven't heard anything is to just let that lie. Oh, no news is good news. I'm going to tell you what, in my life, I have found that is rarely true. Like, no news is suspicious to me. Maybe it's good news, but it could also be like they've went and bought another house, right? Think about it from a child rearing perspective. Those of you with children, okay, was no news ever really good news? Like if things are too quiet, come on. We've been there, you get it. So don't fall into that trap of no news is good news. Instead, proactively make the phone call. Hey, Donna, you said 48 hours. It's about 40 hours. I know I'm a little bit early. I'm curious, where do we stand with inspections? Are the buyers ready to move forward? Right? I'm not begging her to give me something to go back and negotiate, but I'm asking whether or not we're ready to keep moving forward. Are they all set? Number 19, keep tabs on the mortgage. Has the client made formal application? Has the appraisal been scheduled? When is it? Right, all these things. Again, so more balls that you're juggling in the air, more plates you're spinning to make sure all these things have happened. I will tell you a story that when Debbie and I first merged our businesses together, we also merged our offices together and we sat side by side. And I can remember her having a phone conversation one Saturday morning, and I could tell it was about one of our listings that had just taken an offer a week or so earlier. And I'm listening to her have this conversation. And I'm like, okay, like, who is she talking to? Because she kept talking about the financing. And I thought, that is so weird. Why is she having conversations with people about the financing when it's our listing? Like, we don't represent the buyers. And so she hung up the phone, and I turned and I said, who is that? And she told me who it was. And I said, why are you talking to them about the financing? And when I tell you, I remember this like it was yesterday. She looked at me as if I had like 6 siblings growing out of my neck. And I thought, well, what? Why are you looking at me that way? And she said to me, you mean to tell me? Frankly, I think what it was she thought, oh my God, I just signed a piece of paper with this idiot to merge our businesses together. He's way dumber than I thought. Crap. But she looked at me and she said, Do you remember this? She looked at me and said, you don't follow up with the financing as a listing agent? And I said to her, and I was telling the truth. I said, no, like I've never done that ever as a listing agent. So I got to learn that day, because then she told me a couple of horror stories, right? And of course, when I think about looking back now, it's like, well, duh, yeah, of course, you've got to keep those plates spinning as well. But I tell you that story because if no one says it out loud to you, sometimes it just doesn't occur to you. It doesn't make you a bad real estate agent, doesn't make you a dope. It just sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so that morning that I heard her on the phone with talking about all those, with all those of the financing questions, was what woke me up to, man, those are more plates that you have to keep spinning as the listing agent. Again, only if you're interested in actually getting to a closing table. See, people think that I taught Debbie everything I know. There are many things that she actually taught me as well. It has been a mutually beneficial relationship. All right, where are we? Okay, so number 20, inform the sellers when the appraisal is going to take place. Again, same issue, right? That story is I got a phone call in the evening one night from a client who said, is there something you forgot to tell me? And I said, I don't think so. Why do you ask? They said, well, there's a card on my dining room table from some appraiser. Oops. And here's why she was upset. They didn't need, this particular appraiser had a keypad, so they didn't need to be let in. They could let themselves into the house because they were part of the MLS. I didn't tell her the appraisal was happening, and she didn't clean the house. Like, she didn't pick up the toys and her house wasn't horrible, but for her, she wanted to make sure it was perfect so that the appraiser came through and did what they wanted her to do, was make sure that the appraisal was high enough. And she got really upset that I had forgotten to let her know, right? I know it makes it sound like I was terrible at my job. I'm just being honest with you that I made mistakes, right? You will make mistakes too. I made these mistakes, and part of why I made these mistakes is because my business grew fast when I didn't have a whole lot of skill or experience, right? And so I started to experience volume before I had the years under my belt to have experienced some of the learning, right? And so when you start to grow fast, that kind of thing shows up. So make sure that you inform the seller when the appraisal is going to take place. And then you have a bunch of check-ins, right? You're going to check in with the seller's attorney to make sure that you know that the contracts have been completed and sent to the buyer's attorney for signature. You want to know when they come back, right? You want to track that contract. You want to be checking up with the buyer's agent once you know the contracts have been sent, so that you know that the buyers have an appointment to sign the contract. You're going to negotiate any inspection items through to the satisfaction of both parties. You want to make sure that that there's a list that's drawn up and both parties are signing that list, right? So everyone's in agreement with what that looks like. I like to send that list to both the attorneys so that they have an idea of what the story is as well. That all just prevents confusion, right? When it's all just done and nobody documents it any place, then again, selective amnesia can set in towards the end, and you end up with problems, right? So make sure that that's documented.
I'm going to put one, can I put one plug in for Command?
Yeah.
Because Command is your friend on this score. And it's developing the habit of working in your opportunities and daily looking at what your checklists are. It really, 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 really helps. And to Rick's defense, he didn't have anything like Command when he was a new agent. And his business did grow fast.
That is true. Thank you for that. I'm not as dumb as I make myself sound. And yet, I will tell you that I think I said to you the first night we were together, one of the reasons I feel exclusively qualified to stand in front of you for 4.5 weeks and walk you through this content is because I am a real estate agent. I've done all of this stuff myself personally. I've done it well, and I've done it less well, right? I'd rather tell you about all the mistakes that I made and have you learn from that, so that you don't have to do those things. You can just fast track through that, than have you stumble through and not hear about the stuff that can happen. Because frankly, some of it you don't believe anyway. It's like, I'm certain some of these stories are made up for class. I will tell you that the benefit of 20 years of experience is that I don't have to make up anything. It's all real. So you're going to check in with buyers. Yes.
Real quick question on just best practices. When you're sending things like, say, the inspection requests to both attorneys, should you just be copying or sending one message to everyone, or are there times when you should be sending one message to the buyer's attorney, one message to the sellers? I mean, obviously you're not disclosing any critical information in that, but if it's just, here are the signed whatever, here are the requests.
Yeah, so good question. I think the way I'll answer that is, I don't think it's a big deal to put both attorneys on simple communication. Like when they're going to get the documents anyway, so if it's just document delivery, then putting everybody on it so everyone gets it at once, I don't think is a big deal. Other than that, anything other than that, I think you don't actually talk or communicate with the other client's, the buyer's attorney as a listing agent, right? Because you're not connected there. So passing documents is one thing. Having conversation or copying on stuff, leave that to go through the channels. You work it through with the other agent, or have the seller's attorney contact the buyer's attorney.
May I share what I do in this case?
Yes.
And I only do it when I have already established good connection with the other agent. I have the other agent copied, so we are all four, as a matter of fact, on the same page, and it's not behind their back or whatever. And they actually appreciate it, but I have established the connection beforehand. Sometimes they actually initiate this conversation and copy me, just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Nice, nice. You got a haircut, didn't you?
Yes, thank you for noticing.
I like it. It looks nice.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so 24, check in with the buyer's mortgage again, right? Some of this is just again, you're going to keep checking in. 25, you may think this one's kind of silly. Encourage the sellers to begin packing. Because I'm going to tell you what, most sellers think it's going to take them far less time to pack up the stuff in their house than it really takes. So as soon as a lot of these hurdles are cleared, the inspections are done, you know that the deal's moving forward, the contracts are signed, the mortgage is in place and is processing, tell the sellers to start packing, right? Ask them if they need boxes, ask them if they need referrals to moving companies, ask them a bunch of different questions, right? They can just start, go to the guest rooms and pack everything up. So that rooms you don't live in, you don't need that stuff. Go to the closets and pack that stuff up. Open your attic. Go into the attic for the first time in 5 years, and remember that 20 years of crap is up there. And get a dumpster and start dumping that stuff out. It takes them longer. So encouraging them to start this process early. I can't tell you how many times I have arrived as the buyer's agent to do a walkthrough the morning of a closing, and the sellers are still scrambling, trying to get out of the house, right? Pushing as much stuff out the front door as possible. Come on, get out. We're going to. So give them time, give them that service of saying, you know what, start now. And then remind them every couple of days, are you packing? Are you packing? How's the packing going? Do you need help? Do you need a reference or a resource on boxes? Keep pushing that out. Number 26, once you have a signed contract, an agreement to all inspection items, and a mortgage that's cruising along, you may fall into a period of time when not much is happening. Please be sure to stay connected to the sellers during this time. One of the best ways I know how to create bad feelings with your seller clients, just like your buyer clients, is in this kind of 30 to 40 day period where you're just kind of pending to close, is for you not to keep up constant communication. If you drop the communication here, the message you send, whether you mean it or not, the message you send is the only reason you matter to me is because I'm going to get paid. Because then the next time you speak to them is just before you're going to get paid. So all this time, and now you're talking to me again because now there's a closing. So don't make them feel like a paycheck. Make them feel like they are important, and stay connected, because you never know what else might pop up that you could troubleshoot if you are staying connected. And that to me means during this period of time, every 2 to 3 days, a phone call. Like that's twice a week, minimally twice a week on the phone, not a text, not an email, on the phone. Hey, just checking in, how are things going? Hey, just checking in, how are things going? I mean, it's always the same script. Can I help in any way? Do you need a resource? You know, maybe they were packing and recognized that a part of the wooden floor was completely rotten that nobody caught. Maybe they want to make sure that it's fixed before the closing so that they don't have an issue with a walkthrough. Maybe whatever, right? Check in, make sure. And then of course, 28, once the closing date's been settled on, mark your calendars for a week or so prior, and then you'll start having these kinds of calls, right? In 29, making calls to make sure that utilities have been contacted for any kind of switchover, making calls to arrange for an oil tank reading. If you are the listing agent on a house that has oil heat, right? You and the seller need to remember to have the oil company come and stick the tank, right? What does that mean? Why do they come and stick the tank?
You have to pay your prorated portion when you close, or
Exactly right. Right? The buyers are going to buy the oil in the tank, so the oil company has to come and do a reading so that they know what to pay. Right? But that's one of those things that the seller sometimes forgets, and maybe the attorney doesn't remind them. So again, you need to make sure it's on your list. Take care of change of address, right? Make sure they change their license. Gather all the keys to the house. Any warranties or manuals for appliances, make sure they're gathering them and sticking them just someplace in the kitchen, right? Make sure that any appliances or items that are supposed to stay, right? You're reminding them about all this stuff. And so this is, you're starting to ratchet up in that week before the closing, more daily communication to make sure that you're building that strong relationship back up again. 30, check in daily as the closing approaches, as I just said. Number 31, this I find, Debbie still does this, and I think she will say that it's one of the most powerful things that that's still done. And that is find out when moving day is. Find out when moving day is and find out how many people will be there. So if it's husband and wife and 2 children and there's 3 movers that are doing the moving, that's 7 people. Send lunch for 7 people. Call the morning of, let them know that you're doing that. Have it arrive at 11:30 so that the moving people don't leave, right? I remember the last time that I moved, there were dark clouds kind of rolling in the distance, and like all of my couch and everything's on the front lawn. Everything's waiting to be loaded into the truck, and 11:45 comes and everyone gets in the truck and starts to drive away. I'm like, well, where are you going? Like, it's lunchtime. Like, okay, but all my stuff's on the front lawn and it's going to rain. Nah, we'll be back in time. It's a quick lunch. We're just doing pizza. So what we have found is that not only does that help keep the movers on the property, which keeps the sellers calmer. Think about moving day. You don't have forks. The refrigerator's empty. You can't find a proper plate, right? And so sending them lunch, it can be a couple of pizza pies and salad with soda. It can be a hero from a deli, right? You don't have to make it fancy, but sending lunch that everyone can enjoy is so appreciated. Am I on track with that, Debbie?
It is the best thing that we do at the moment, and it doesn't cost much. I think the most we ever spend is $60, and that's when there are 5 movers and 4 people in the house, 4 family members. And we send some cookies. We send sandwich pizza or pizza and pizza, waters and chips and some kind of sweets, whether we buy, and it's nothing. It's really nothing. We just have a good time. And they love it.
Didn't you have someone ask you an interesting question last week about that?
Oh, last week. Oh my gosh. This was so funny. They were moving out of their house one day and into their house the other day. And she said, oh, I love everybody loved the lunch. It was so great. And we just wonder, will you be bringing us another lunch tomorrow? I said, how do I answer this judiciously? And I said, well, usually what we plan is that we deliver lunch on the busiest moving day. So I hope I accomplished that. And she said, oh, I get it. And then she ordered the same lunch from the same deli because everybody loved it so much. So I gave her my order and she just ordered it herself for a repeat.
Love it. Love it. So much fun. So will you be sending us lunch every day for the next 2 weeks? No, but thank you. Right. So again, just as an idea, it goes a long way, and people talk about that a lot, right? Because it's again, you are keeping everybody's stress level down, and especially when there's kids around or whatever, like lunch becomes a stress thing, and so we just look to take care of that for them. Then, of course, towards the end, you're removing the lockbox from the house, you're ordering the sign down, any marketing materials, all that stuff is coming out. So make sure that all has a plan. Make sure that the sellers on 33 know when the buyer's agent will do the walkthrough. And then 34, now this still says go to the closing with the seller. I know how old-fashioned that looks. I know that a lot of sellers sign ahead of time and are out of there, and there's nothing really to go to, right? The days of everybody sitting around a table and closing really don't exist anymore. And that is the way we used to do it. We used to have both buyer and seller and both attorneys and both agents all sit at a table together and process the transaction. Knowing that that doesn't exist anymore, the version of this with your sellers is certainly know when the closing is. You may attend, right? If they're doing some version of pre-signing, at least know when it is, know when the buyers are going to be signing in case there are issues. Make yourself available, right? In case there are things that have to be tended to. Number 35, report the property is sold in the MLS within 48 hours of the closing day. Follow up with the seller. So let's just talk about follow-up plans, right? Because the rest of this is all about follow-up. I do have, and we didn't talk much about this on the buyer side, so I want to talk about this on both sides in our remaining few minutes, and then I will tell you my cat house story. And so the idea of follow-up, whether you have a listing client that is moving away or you have a buyer client, I believe the best path forward is within 24 hours of the closing, you're following up. If it's the buy side, hey, how are things going in the new house? If it's the list side, hey, how are things going in the new house or on the drive across country or whatever, right? Whatever they're doing. So 24 hours, and then again before the 7th day. So 24 hours, 7 days, and then one more time before 30 days is up. So in the first 30 days after you close a property, you have a minimum of 3 communications with that client. Again, you're solidifying the relationship. You're making sure they understand that just because you got paid, you don't feel like the job is over, that they weren't just a paycheck for you, right? With buyers, you can offer resources. Hey, I'm curious, how are things going? And they say, oh, things are going great. You know what? We could use someone to plow our driveway. We didn't think of that. And now they say it's going to snow on Saturday. We have no one to plow our driveway. Well, I'm so glad I called. Let me give you the names of some people. Or in the summer, maybe they need someone to mow the lawn, right? Whatever. People don't make those follow-up phone calls right away because they're afraid that something will have happened in the first 24 hours or a couple of days that they'll get blamed for. I hear it all the time. Oh, aren't you afraid to call back right away just in case they moved in and like the dishwasher exploded? Like, well, let me ask you this. Did you personally cause the dishwasher to explode? Well, if the answer is yes, then maybe don't call and retain an attorney. But if you didn't personally cause the dishwasher to explode, why wouldn't you want to make the phone call? Because now you get to kind of come in and offer a resource. Do you need a plumber? Don't forget you bought a home warranty. Did you call them first? Here's the number. How can I help, right? So it's that whole idea of how can I assist? If you're a closing gift person, make sure that the closing gift arrives either at for sellers, maybe at or before the closing, right? For buyers, it can be after the fact. And then one last thing that I want to just talk with you about, and this happens again on the buy side or the sell side, is one more source of business that we didn't talk about in our first week. I don't think we've talked about it at all. And it kind of shows up right here after your closings. And that's the concept of adopting your orphans. What do I mean by adopting orphans? Who are the orphans?
The buyer clients.
So they are the buyers of your listings, right? The orphans are the buyers of your listings. Why do I call them orphans?
Because sometimes the buyer agents don't pay attention to them after the closing, so it's an opportunity to maybe get new business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Alicia was kind. Alicia said sometimes the buyer's agents don't pay attention to them after the closing. NAR statistics say that 88% of home buyers would use their agent again, and only 12% do. And so what that tells us is that most buyer's agents are not competent in following up, right? And so what we're encouraging you to do is just go and adopt those orphans, right? They need help. And so have a plan, have a follow-up plan, even with not your clients. So with the orphans, for me, the follow-up plan would be within 24 to 48 hours, you connect with them. Now, if you have their phone number, great, give them a call. Hey, this is Rick Scott. I just wanted to check in with you. You may not remember me. I was the guy on the other side of the transaction. I represented the Smiths that you just bought the house from. Just wanted to call in and see how things were going. How's the house? How's the unpacking gone? Is there anything you need help with? Let me ask this. If their own agent hasn't called them in 24 to 48 hours and you do, what message have you just sent?
I'm going to hire you next time.
You got it. You got it. And if you think that's not what they're thinking, you would be absolutely incorrect, because that sends that message, bam, right then and there. You have, it's like a pattern interrupt, baby. Because the second they hang up, they're like, so did our agent call us? Honey, did you hear from so-and-so? Nope. Well, the guy on the other side just called us. Wow. Done.
After a while, if you stay in touch with them, they'll believe that you sold them the house.
Yes, that is right. That is right. That is right. And there are enough of us on this call who can vouch for that personally, where they absolutely think that you were their agent, right? So within 24 to 48 hours, there's some kind of a touch base. Within the first 7 days, there's a second touch base. And within 30 days, there's a third touch base. Maybe you want to go so far as the second touch base within the week is that you arrive at the house with a housewarming gift for them. To say thank you for buying my listing, right? Then you're going to add them into your 33 touch. And again, you've just adopted them. They just become yours. It's awesome. So I encourage that as a path forward for you in terms of client acquisition when you are not selling your own property. Now, the only time I would encourage you not to adopt orphans is if they're KW clients, right? So if they're KW clients, we don't call them orphans. We call them your colleagues' clients. And so we steer clear of them. Make sense? Any questions, comments, concerns, queries? Does that whole anatomy of a seller transaction make sense to you? Right, and so what I hope you'll do is utilize that again with your first listing. Once you have an offer in place, just haul out that checklist. Just go through it. Make sure that you're using it as a checklist. That's why we give it to you, to make sure that you have something to follow so that you're not missing any steps. Yes?
Rick, is there a form to fill out for checks coming to the office?
Keep asking that question, John. Is there a form to fill out?
For the deposit check? Is there something that we need to fill out, or they just get the check and they know where it's going, or is there?
Got it. So when you have a deposit check, again, for the foreseeable, or at least for the short-term future, while we're still accepting these checks, both market centers have envelopes. You will put the check in the envelope, and on the front of the envelope, there's information that we need from you. So you fill out the front of the envelope with the property address, your name, what it is, and you pop that into, in the Stamford Market Center, you pop it into the gray box in the hallway, and in the Ridgefield Market Center, you pop that into the gray shelving outside of Deb Linke's office.
Hey,
So
Rick,
there's not a form per se. There's a form that is the envelope that you put the check in.
you cannot submit this envelope if you don't have the command completed first and then the green sheet second, because
Yes.
they wouldn't know where to put this check.
Yes, thank you for that reminder, Sylvia. That is true. Right,
Yeah.
so it's all part and parcel. If you have a deposit check that you're submitting, you have to have your paperwork in, and you have to have your green sheet completed as well. It's the only way we can connect all the dots. And the deposit checks must be in the bank account within 3 days. So that means, that's why we ask for all the paperwork to be within 3 days, because it all connects.
Rick, I might have missed this earlier, but do you have that checklist on a document somewhere for the seller transaction?
Yeah, so a Word document was sent out by Maria yesterday, Norma. So
Okay.
if you check your email, it should be in that from yesterday.
Okay, I'm going through my emails. Thank you.
No worries. And if you can't find it, just text me and I'll forward it to you again.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Hey, Rick.
All right. Yeah.
A quick question.
Of course.
Earlier, when you were on the other call at 1 o'clock where you were showing the numbers and you used how you pull up what the office did, what is the office ID that you put into that search?
Sure. So if you are a member of the Ridgefield Market Center,
Yes.
the office code is KELW 120. KELW 120. If you are a member of the Stamford Market Center, your office code is 3548. 3548.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. All right. Any other questions? Want to hear my
Rick, what
story?
about a resale document for like condos? Is that going to command to be uploaded that, or is that just goes to the attorney?
We don't necessarily need a copy of the resale docs. Is anyone keeping resale docs? Donna, Silva, Debbie?
The reason I do is I'm trying to have a collection of various complexes, condo docs, at least their rules and regs, because they come in very handy, just to have a baseline with that. And I put them into my command folders. I do custom command folders and I'm putting everything that is PDFable into my command folders.
Yeah. So there's an answer. You can certainly save them for. They're not a required part of the command paperwork, but perhaps save them for future use. You can't reuse them. Obviously, you have to, every time you sell a condo in that complex, you have to reorder condo docs. So they're not reusable, but they're just for reference.
Right, right.
Anything else that I can answer before we finish? All right, so I will end with my cat house story. It's a good real estate story, and my hope is that it also kind of sends a message about a lot of different things. A message about behaving intelligently, a message about I could never met a house I didn't like, because like the business side of housing is just the business side of housing. About not being a snob around listings, right? About a lot of things. So I'll tell you the story, and then you can give me your ahas at the tail end. So my cat house story starts. It's probably the year 2000 or so. I was in the business only about 18 months or so, and I was prospecting houses down in South Ridgefield, and I got a hit on a house on Silverbrook Lane or Road or whatever it is. And so I made an appointment to go and see the house. I drive up to the house at the day and time of the appointment, and I hadn't driven past it beforehand, and it's kind of a disaster. It's a small little ranch. It's way overgrown. It's clearly in disrepair, in poor shape. And so I go up and I ring the doorbell and knock on the door, and no one answers. I try this, so that happened twice. And by the third time, I got the guy on the phone and said, okay, so here's the deal. I'm not coming to your house again because you keep standing me up. Tell me what the issue is. And he said, well, I don't know how to say this, but I'm embarrassed for you to walk through the house. And I said, well, I'm a professional. I do this all the time. Don't worry about it. Be there when I get there at 2:00 on Tuesday, whatever. So it's the summer. It's 2:00 on Tuesday. I pull up again, and P.S. This story has some foul language in it, and I apologize ahead of time. And yet the story wouldn't be truthful if I didn't use the language that was used that day. So if they're Bogdan, if your son is around, send him into the other room. So I get to the house, and I walk up again. I ring the doorbell. I think the doorbell didn't work, which is part of the issue. And the screen door has no screen in it, so I just can kind of reach through the screen door and knock on the door. So I do that, boom, 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 once, and I go to do it again, boom, boom, and before I get to the third time, the door swings open, and there's this weird kind of crazy-haired, shirtless man standing in front of it, and he screams at me, "What the fuck do you want?" And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, I said, well, I have an. Are you John? And he said, no, I'm not John. Boom, and he slams the door in my face. I thought, okay, really? Like, what? This is time number 3. Maybe I should just call it a day. Like, this is clearly God's way of saying that this is not meant to be. I'm like, no, you know what? It is my 3rd time. He told me he would be here. Clearly there's someone home. So I bang on the door again. And this time it opens, and there's a different person, less crazy hair, shirted. I said, John? He says, yes. I said, great, I'm Rick Scott. He says, oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry about that. It's one of my roommates. Okay, whatever. So he's standing in the door and asking me some questions. I'm asking him some questions. I'm talking through the screen door with no screen in it. And I finally said, okay, well, so one of the things that I'm here to do is take a tour through the house. So why don't we get that part out of the way, and I can answer these questions when we finish. So he reluctantly opens the door, and I step into the house. And as I step in, I step to the side, and he closes the door. And as he's closing the door, right, the wooden front door, I'm seeing the last little rays of light from outside start to disappear, as you can kind of. And I'm noticing that there is not much else on in terms of light in the house. And so he closes the door, and now we're standing there. And I had just come in from the bright sun in the afternoon outside. And like my eyes are trying to adjust to the light, thinking, well, he's clearly going to turn a light on at any moment, right? And so I'm trying to make small talk while I'm trying to get my eyes to adjust to the darkness. I'm also getting my nose to now start to adjust to the very unpleasant smell that I had walked into. And so he's talking to me as if it's completely normal that we're standing in his foyer in the dark. And now again, it's daytime out, which means all of the shades are down because that's why it was dark in the house. And what I'm realizing as my eyes are starting to adjust and start to see some of the little rays of light coming through the sides of the windows where the shades weren't all the way blocking, I'm starting now to get a lay of the land. I can see we're in the foyer. I can see there's a hallway off to the left, and I can see there's like the living room and then the dining room off over here, and I'm starting to figure out what the lay of the land is. And he says, oh, well, so, you know, why don't I give you the tour? And I said, okay, well, why don't we turn on a light, right? Why don't we do that first? And he says, oh yeah, sure, sorry. And he takes off across this way, across the living room, and leaves me standing. And he turns on a light over way across in the dining room, living room area. Again, just a small ranch, so it was like a little square in terms of layout. And he turns that on, and so the light, it's a very, very dim light, like I think it was a 4-watt bulb, right? So, and the light's all the way over there. And so I'm standing there, and he's standing over there talking at me across this house now. I thought, well, this is foolish. I need to start taking my notes. I'm still trying to be polite and put my hand up to my nose so that I didn't barf with the smell. And so I'm starting to walk now from the foyer area, across the living room to where he is, where this little smidge of light is. And I'm trying to take notes. I'm trying not to smell anything. And I'm walking across the room, and I'm suddenly realizing when he walked across the room, it looked like he was walking just kind of weirdly. But I didn't pay much attention to it until then I was going across the room. And again, I'm walking towards him, towards the light, with some of the light coming in through the cracks in the shades that were pulled down. And I'm realizing that the reason that he's walking across the room kind of bizarrely is because he's stepping around all these little puddles. And it's as I'm halfway across the room with all the puddles, I start to recognize that I am not alone in this room. And when I say not alone in this room, I mean there are cats everywhere. There are cats on the couch. There are cats under the couch. There are cats on the windowsill. There are cats on the counters. There are cats on the chairs. There are cats everywhere. So I'm walking around the puddles, starting to really take in what I have walked into. There's a bazillion cats. And so now I'm starting to hear the cats. Like I didn't hear them before. And now they're meow, 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 doing their little meowing thing. So I get across the room to him, and I think, okay, so what is my play here, right? What do I do? I thought, well, I don't want to be rude. And I told him not to worry about the condition of the house. That was on me. I said I would come and tour the house. So we get through that room. We get into the living room, more cats. No puddles, interestingly enough, in the dining room. I guess they were trained not to go on the floor in the dining room, only in the living room. But more cats. Cats on the chairs, cats on the dining room table. When I tell you in this house, and I'm not kidding when I say there had to be minimally 50 cats in this house, if not more. There were just cats everywhere. So we get into the dining room now, and I'm kind of over, and I'm walking around in the dining room, and I'm recognizing that now there's a kitchen. And so he flips the light on in the kitchen, and then there's cats. There are cats in the sink. There are cats, the cabinetry is open. There are cats sitting in the cabinets, like next to the food. Oh! So we get into the dining room area, and he says, well, do you want to sit down? And I thought to myself, there is nothing I want less than to sit down in this house. So I said, oh, no, you know what? And of course, I would have had to remove 5 or 6 cats from someplace in order to actually sit down. I thought, no, this is fine. You know, let me just ask the question I need to ask. So dining room, hardwood floor, okay, great. I think it's hardwood floor. Yes, okay, good. we kind of move into the kitchen. He says, oh, can I get you something to drink? And I thought, so first of all, my answer to that might be yes as soon as I'm done with this, but I certainly don't want water. And second of all, no, I don't want anything to drink in your house ever, ever, ever. That part, I think that ship has sailed with all the cats. So we get through the kitchen. We walk into the hallway. Again, we're just kind of going in a big square. There's a bathroom. And I'm starting now to realize that outside of these rooms I've been through, there's some hoarding going on, right? The bathroom is chock, I mean, newspapers and stuff. There was like you could get into where the sink was. You could get into where the toilet was. I don't know how they got into the shower or the tub because it was full of stuff. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm still trying not to vomit from the smell. I'm horrified that there are 7 bazillion cats. I'm starting to think that maybe I won't be ever seen from or heard from again. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I get out of here quickly? So we get to the end of the hall, and I said, so bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. I don't know why I even cared about what the inside of this house looked like, because at that point, it was clear to me that I was going to sell it to a builder who was going to knock it down anyway. And yet again, I was trying not to be rude. I wasn't quite sure what to do. And so we go down in this last hallway, which then ends up back where the front door was. And there's 3 doors. And he says, well, there's 3 bedrooms. Do you need to see them? And I thought, sure. And so he opens the first door, and this massive plume of smoke comes out of the room into the hallway. So now I'm trying not to vomit from the smell. I'm trying not to vomit because I'm coughing to death on the on the secondhand smoke. And as the smoke dissipates, I'm starting to see this tiny little bedroom, hoarders, newspapers like taller than me, clothes everywhere, and in the corner is a television, and in the opposite corner is a human sitting on a chair, this short, stout guy with this big furry beard, and he's, oh, hi, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And when I tell you, he is smoking like 6 cigarettes all at the same time, like lighting one with the next, like that type of thing. How he was alive, if that's how he lived, always in that room, I have no idea, because the house didn't smell like smoke. Either that or the cat urine just masked the smoke smell. That could be it. Okay, well, hardwood floors in a closet. Okay, great, thank you so much. We go to the next room, which John says, oh, this is my room. Again, hoarding, stuff all over the place. We open the 3rd door, and the man who cursed me out the front door says, what the fuck do you want? As he opens that door, he says, oh, I'm sorry. I go, shut up. And they're starting to have an argument. I'm like, oh my stars, what is happening? Like this, I get paid for this? Like, what am I doing? No, it's fine. Let's just close that door. You stay in there. Please don't get up. Please put a shirt on. Please stop screaming. Please, 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 everything. So we get finally back around to the front door. And I think to myself, okay, we can now go outside and we'll get any other questions I have or he has done outside. And we start to get to the front door, and he says, oh, did you need to see the basement? Now, you may never think the same of me again. And I said, oh, well, sure, that would be great. And so we walk back through the living room, dodging all the puddles. We walk back through all the cats, back into the kitchen, and he opens the door to the basement. Now, when I tell you I haven't gotten to the best part of this story yet, and people don't believe me when I say this, so I am telling you I am not making any of this up. He opens the door and flicks the light on. Now I'm standing at the top. He's standing behind me. So if he was a serial killer, he could have just pushed me down the stairs, locked it behind, and I wouldn't be here telling you this story. That did not happen. However, what did happen was I'm standing at the top of the stairs. He's behind me. He reaches around me to flick the light on. So I'm at the top of the stairs. And as he flicks the light on, do you know, did you ever live in an apartment in New York where sometimes you flick the light on and a bug like scooted across the floor and you're like, oh my God, disgusting. Well, that occurred, except it wasn't a bug that I saw. It was a child. And I thought, okay, like, what did I just see? I thought, well, like, I couldn't have seen what I thought I saw. And so now I'm walking down the stairs, and he's behind me walking down the stairs. And I get to the bottom of the stairs, and the basement, it's a small basement, but in front of me are like all 2x4s with like that rigid insulation, not sheetrock per se, but that rigid insulation kind of stuffed in between all the 2x4s. Like they built this weird kind of room down there. And so we go to this little space in between these two 2x4s, and that was where the light had been flicked on, where I thought I saw a child run across that little space. And so he says, oh, well, so in there, these are where my tenants live. I thought, your tenants? The light was off. They were sitting in the dark in the basement. Like, now I was certain I was toast, right? So I'm like, okay, so you have 2 tenants upstairs and 2, okay, let me make a note of that. Like, what? All I did was keep making notes. I'm not sure why I thought my notes would save me. And then I just kept making notes in my little book. And so we kind of stepped through he says, well, go in because you have to see this area, and then there's the mechanicals area, and that's the whole basement. I'm like, okay. So I go through the 2 2x4s, and sure enough, there is some little girl, she couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old, sitting in the corner, coloring now. And then her mother, I assume it was her mother, a woman, sitting on a chair next to like a little hot plate type thing, stirring something. I'm like, okay, but you people were in the dark. It was dark when he opened the door. And I know I'm not going crazy. Why don't you have lights on down here? Anyway, I say hello. I thank you, make my way across this little enclosed space to the next area, which is now the mechanicals area. So John, this person who's been giving me the tour, says, okay, well, so if you just go through those 2x4 areas, that's where all the mechanicals are. I'll just stay here. Again, am I the stupidest human on the planet? Like, you go in and I'll just stay here. Like, if you were watching this as a horror movie, every step of the way you'd be like, oh my God, they always have to have a stupid character who gets killed off first. And clearly this is the guy, right? So I go in, and it's dark again, because now the light from this other room is barely coming through, and there's one little window, so there's some light there. And my eyes are adjusting to that as well. It starts to stink to high heaven again. And as my eyes are getting used to the dark all over again, I'm starting to see that there are some mechanicals. I see an oil burner off to the side. But then in the middle of this space, did you ever see the movie Alien with the eggs? Well, as my eyes are adjusting, I'm thinking, okay, it looks like alien eggs. Like there's all these alien eggs in this space. And I'm you ever in a scenario where you're like, your brain is going a mile a minute thinking, okay, I'm certain they're not alien eggs, but that's all I can think that they are. So what are they if they're not alien eggs? And so I'm standing, and again, I'm taking my notes about, oil burner, alien eggs. Okay, how many alien eggs do we have, right? I wonder if we can raise the price for alien eggs. Again, as my eyes are adjusting, what I finally realize is that they're not alien eggs. They're these tall bags of cat litter. And just beyond them is this plastic kiddie pool that all these bags of cat litter had been dumped into. Now how they got downstairs, I have no idea, because there were no cats downstairs. There was only children downstairs, or a child downstairs. Apparently the cats go down there, use it, and then they scoop the stuff out of the big kiddie pool, and they put it in the alien egg bags, and they just leave the bags there. I came back upstairs. I went outside. I listed that property for $262,000. The rules were no showings. You can drive past it. We're not showing you the inside. I marketed it to builders. I sold it myself for like $275,000. So I got both sides, so it became a $550,000 sale for me. I then sold to John and the bearded weird guy, his roommate. I went and sold them a house on Franklin Street in Danbury for another $200,000. So now we're up to $750,000. I sold it to a builder who then built a property, sold a $1 million house on that property. He kind of screwed me out of it, so I didn't get that side of it. And yet, at the end of the day, there are holes in that story. And I would not, today, knowing what I know today, I wouldn't have behaved the same way. And I don't encourage you to put yourselves in a position where there could be danger, right? I'm not sure that I was ever really in any danger. I mean, clearly I wasn't. It was just a house of crazy people, right? And yet I didn't know I wasn't in danger. And I just kind of kept stepping in it, almost literally, right? As I kept moving through it. But here was I always think about that story and those people and that house and think to myself, you know, there were a lot of people would have shown up and said, you know what, count me out. I'm done. And at the end of the day, these were people who needed help. They couldn't afford to live where they were living anymore. They needed assistance. And so I showed up and I helped them sell that house for more money than probably it should have sold for, right? And then relocate them and find them a new place to live. Interestingly enough, they only brought 3 cats with them. I have no idea. The questions I get asked a lot are, where did the child go? What happened to the child? I get asked, did you call anyone about that child? I did not. Maybe I should have, but I did not. So where did they go? Don't know. Where did the crazy shirtless guy go? Don't know, because he wasn't part of the new purchase. And where did all the cats go? Don't know. They only moved 3 cats in to their house up north. So that, my friends, is my cat house story. And it's all 110% true. There is not one part of that is made up. Because I'd have to be deranged to make something like that up, right? So I hope that our time together was beneficial to you. I hope that what you recognize is that our time in Ignite is really just the beginning of your learning. It really is a foundational time for you to kind of put some pieces together, figure out where this business is supposed to come from, start to practice how you're going to do what you're going to do with buyers and sellers, and then just start doing it with buyers and sellers, right? Just doing it. Because the best way to learn, the best way to get better, the best way to build the muscles of the skills that you that you will need to continue to grow is to just trial and error it. Obviously, we'd love you to plug more into some of the classes that we have during the day, right? Because they will be available to you as kind of supplements to what we just did. So watch the calendar for things like making money with the disc, which I think I'm doing next week. That's a conversation about behavior, which I think many of you will really dig. So check the calendar for that. We'll put that on for you. We do have some other great stuff coming up in the fall. And when I say the fall, I mean really starting in September. We're going to get back to having listing rehearsals. So if you want to plug into a listing rehearsal and practice what you've learned, we'll be doing those kinds of things with examples from top agents, and then everyone else kind of practicing what they do. So That's what we got for you. I am so glad that you chose to spend time. It's always my honor and privilege to spend time with you. I always learn more than I give. So thank you for being a people of talent and sharing your talent with me. It's massively appreciated. And with that, I wish you a lovely Friday evening. I wish you a lovely weekend. Sell and list some houses. Let me know what I can do, and I'm sure I'll see you in the Zoom classroom sometime soon, as early as maybe next week. Good night.
Thanks, Rick.
Take care.
Thank you.
Sure thing. It is my pleasure.